I guess. I do. I left him in the car.
It's dark outside, so let me know when.
And the sweet spot is right at the top of the mic, so talk right in. I got you. As soon as Bill returns to his post, we'll get going. What is this?
Gateway.
Am I close enough for you?
That's fine. Whatever. I'm going to turn the middle speaker off. I'm going to turn the middle speaker off. I just did.
There you go.
So here I go. I hope I will too. What?
Bill, you ready?
Yeah.
Bill, you recording?
Where the hell are the rest of them are supposed to be here tonight?
You ready? All right, Don.
What?
5, 4, 3, 2, and go.
Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2019 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from Speedway, Indiana at McGilvery's in Speedway. And if you come to town for any reason, I don't know what it would be now. It could be to come just to see the museum. You got to make sure you stop at McGilvery's. It's only about 4 miles or so from straight west of the Speedway. Tonight's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, and SVRA. A couple things to mention. Several of you were here Saturday when Beeline played. Now, Phil Kaiser had told me they've got a pretty good band and we'd like to come to the west side, so I arranged finally for them to talk to Brenda, and they were here, and they were spectacular. If you missed them, too bad. They are scheduled to be back here on June the 8th, but who knows, maybe somebody will get the sniffles and they won't be able to make it, so they could be here earlier. For those of you who hadn't heard, condolences go out to Ralph and Jane Ligori at the passing of their son Ralph Jr. over the weekend. He's been very sick for quite a long time, and he passed away over the weekend, so we wish them well and sorry to hear about their loss. The Rich Vogler Scholarship Drive is about to end, so you can go look up Eleanor Vogler on Facebook and get all the information. And it's a 501c3, and they're looking for donations. It's a college fund. Anybody involved in motorsports can get some money to go for college education. Next week, my first 2 confirmed guests are the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Vice President of Marketing, Mr. Matt Mindrum, and the lady who was behind the very successful Super Bowl, Allison Meglinton, will also be here. She's Senior Vice President for Hulman Motorsports. Very interesting couple of people, and you'll enjoy them. And I've got to call out to somebody who said they could be here, so I haven't heard back yet, but we'll see. If you have computer trouble, which I seem to have been born with, you got to get a hold of Jack at Computer Overdrive. It's located at Lyndhurst and Crawfordsville Road. You can call him, tell him your problem. Get an appointment. His number is 317-328-0766. And if you like RC planes and or drones, you got to go to the back half of the shop and see Mark. If you need to get your favorite doctor's appointment, and that of course is a dentist, you got to call the Indy Dental Group. Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis have a phenomenal practice. And if you need dental work, they're the people to see. Call them for an appointment. Number is 317-846-6125. And if you haven't been over to the Speedway Museum, it's winding down. Well, not really winding down. It's there now until the 21st of April. The Hoosier Thunder Indiana Short Track Heritage. Some great cars on display, and you'll love it. My first guest is a gentleman that's been here before. He is he's an attorney. You know what they say about attorneys. If they talk, look out. But this young man has got a very interesting resume and the things he's done prior to coming to the Speedway. He was a law clerk at the Supreme Court for Justice Theodore Boehm. He got his law degree from Valparaiso Law in 26, and he graduated from Drexel University in 2001. And while he was there as an undergraduate, he was a 4-year starter on the school's NCAA Division I basketball team. He was the leading scorer and a unanimous first-team All-America selection for the conference, American East Conference in 2001. He does know athletics. He's worked a number of places that he dealt with athletes. And when he came to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he worked at the Speedway in the legal department, and somebody spotted him and said, this man needs to come to IndyCar, and he's there. Now he negotiates contracts for television, promoters with tracks, and puts all kinds of things together. We'll find out about it. Very interesting young man. Please welcome Mr. Stephen Starks. Obviously, you were an athlete. You played basketball in college. You were quite good, obviously. You were drafted in, 20th in the NBA at one point?
Development League.
The Development League.
D-League, yeah.
But you played in South America?
I played Latin America.
Latin America.
Dominican and Mexico. Yeah.
Did you have your heart set in going to the NBA?
Of course. Well, first let me say, Don, thanks for having me back.
Oh.
It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks for everybody in attendance for welcoming me. I enjoyed my last experience here, and so it's a pleasure to be before you again. We know how much you do for motorsports, and thanks for including me this week.
Well, you're
going way back, though, to the basketball days, let me tell you.
But,
way back.
An athlete's an athlete.
That was like 30 pounds ago. That's the way I keep track of how long it's been. But at one point,
Let's not go to that. Let's not go there.
But at one point, yes, I played basketball in college at Drexel University, and then you've already mentioned a little bit in the Dominican Republic and in Mexico, and then in what's now known as the G League, was the Development League. In 2001, had a stint there before I went back abroad, all before law school. And yes, the goal at that point was to play in the NBA, and of course I came up short, or I wouldn't be here before you.
Oh, jeez. I'm kind of glad you are sure. Oh, here comes the guy. He got out. They opened up the casket and he climbed out. How about that?
That's right.
How your career has taken some kind of strange. You don't think of an attorney as being involved in sports, but you worked for a couple of companies that was what they did, and that's what you did, is dealt with athletes.
Yeah, I think, when I got done playing and went to law school, for me, getting involved in sports law was kind of the next best thing for a former athlete. And so that kind of guided my path through law school. I kind of thought I might try to jump into the area of sports law, and was able to do that at some point after my clerkship, as you mentioned, which was my first job out of law school. So it just was a natural fit. It's something I didn't plan way back, but once I learned a little bit more about the opportunities as a lawyer, sports law just made sense to me.
How, when dealing with athletes, how is it different dealing with race drivers and other athletes, professional athletes?
Well, when I dealt with athletes before I got into motorsports, it was as an agent. I represented, players and soccer players and NFL players at one point. And so in this role, both as when I was the Deputy General Counsel for Hulman Company, and now in my role as VP of Promoter and Media Partner Relations for IndyCar, I don't deal directly with the drivers. Obviously, we factor their interests and their opinions in a lot of the things we do on the promoter side when we pick, venues we want to race, the tracks we want to go. And then obviously, when we talk about our media rights deals, we're always thinking about ways to gain the best exposure for our athletes, our drivers, and our sport. And that includes domestic and in the international media deals I'm currently trying to do to get us up on TV and on digital platforms all over the world.
When I heard Mark say that with the new deal with NBC, that IndyCar retained the rights to the television rights to the racing worldwide, that's got to be brilliant, because as I was told when Fernando Alonso was here in 2017, the hit on the website were enormous. Last year when he wasn't here, they lost almost 500,000, went away. So obviously, and if you follow Formula One, they really go behind their countrymen. I mean, Leonard Hamilton won, not Leonard, Lewis Hamilton won, I forget where, in Germany or something, they booed him, and a German won in England, and they booed him, because they want their countrymen to succeed. And I think sending the telecast of IndyCar overseas and making it available and negotiating deals to get the programs over is a great idea.
I think it is too. I think Mark is brilliant, and I think in addition to that, he's had the experience and have seen with when he was CEO of the ATP and helped create ATP properties where they did the same thing. He saw that there's a lot of value in having control over your international media rights, and so. Once our deal with ESPN International expired at the end of 18, we saw this as a great opportunity for us to jump into this and bring our rights back in-house outside of the U.S. and go directly to our broadcasters and try to sell those media rights for a variety of reasons. First, the best way to grow the sport is to make sure that the potential broadcast partners that you sell your rights to know a lot about what's going on day to day, and we wanted direct relationships without anyone in between us as a broker with our media partners overseas. And we think that we can, teach them more about the sport, get more involved with them in a way where we can shed insight as to what's going on within our sport, which will help the broadcast outside of North America in those respective territories. I think that with IMSP, right down the hall from IndyCar, it's a first-class production company. We have the ability in-house to offer customized content that will kind of supplement the races and help grow viewership in the respective territories. So we think for a variety of reasons it made a whole lot of sense, and we're looking forward to finalizing those deals here real soon and getting up and running before St. Pete, and we'll see how it goes.
Are you looking to add one or two events, say, by next year or the year after? I can think of several tracks that would make sense to go to, I would think.
I don't, in my promoter relations role, when we look at the schedule each year, we just want to make it the best, most robust, diverse schedule we can create year after year. There's no magic number to answer your question about how many events we're trying to add to the schedule. I think 19 is one of the best schedules we've had in years, with the addition of Laguna Seca as the finale. Circuit of the Americas is new to the schedule, and that's long overdue. The fans have wanted us to be in Austin for quite some time. We saw tremendous turnout at the test that we just had at COTA, and we're hearing a lot of positive news about the prospect of us having a tremendous race there, which we think will happen. So we're just always massaging and making sure that we've got the right flow. We're looking at dates. You have to remember that for every venue, it's not only the IndyCar calendar that matters, but we have to look at what's going on their individual race schedule. We have to look at what's going on in the market, and so it's really difficult to build a schedule. TV plays a primary component to building it. And so we're looking at where we want to be, regions in the country. We obviously are looking to expand and have opportunities overseas before we start domestically. So all of that has to be balanced and weighed, and that's how you kind of come up with a good schedule. So it's not so much of how many, it's just making sure we have the right cadence and flow.
Well, several of the tracks that have done well in the past, and I understand they're looking back, was Richmond for one, short track, and that place was spectacular. I don't know if you know, I'm sure you know Mark Janes from IMS. He's the voice of the Speedway. He and I, when he was a reporter, he and I would sit up in the grandstand. We were in Richmond, and the last year we were there, I said to him, if this keeps up, we're going to have to find someplace else to go, because the crowd was building. Main grandstand was filled, and they were coming around through turn 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. They were coming closer to us, and then they stopped it. And the people that I would talk to, they said, boy, these cars are a lot faster than the other ones. I said, yeah, you're right, they are. They're a lot faster when they're under caution. And then it stopped, and I've heard that they were interested in coming back. So that would be a nice East Coast place to be. Kentucky was always popular, and Kansas City was popular. And when they did it right, they got good crowds there. So are you guys looking at adding? Would you consider adding another couple of ovals? Yes, I hope.
Well, I mean, yes, then that's the answer. What I would say about those places is they all have great reputation, great leadership, and they're historic venues. We definitely, it's been publicized that we've definitely had talks with Richmond. We're interested. They're interested, I think, at a level, and we just have to figure out if we can make it work. I think the fans are keen to see us go back there. I think the drivers would be into it. It's a great region, an important television market. So we'll see what happens. But again, a lot of factors go into whether we can actually land an event on a schedule. But no doubt, a couple of ones you named are at the top of the list.
When the ABC TV contract expired, were you looking? I'm sure you renegotiated with them, but did NBC come dancing in the door and said, "Me, me, me, me"?
I don't know if I'd put it just like that. What I'd say is, we obviously, like I said last time, we were very, very pleased with the long relationship and the outstanding job that ABC did. Broadcasting the Indianapolis 500-mile race for that many years is unprecedented. And so we also knew how good a job NBC could do. And so, it was just trying to evaluate the best opportunity, and we're thrilled the way it ended up. And we know we have, the best media partner out in NBC, and we're looking forward to the next few years. But we're very, very excited to have them on board, and we think we can grow the sport together.
Well, it seems to me you have obviously been, it seems to a lot of people, but me as particular, since I'm sitting here and can say that, because a lot of their events are already promoting the IndyCar Series. I mean, I've seen promotions obviously for the 500, but I think I spotted one that we were talking about upcoming St. Petersburg, and they're interested in getting into the sport and building it as well because they're smart. I had a conversation with a producer with a former outfit, and I said, why don't you put crawls or do something? Well, we only promote what we know will draw. Well, if people don't know it, it ain't going to draw. That didn't make any sense to me, but I see NBC understands it and what it takes. You got to get eyes. You got to tell them where the eyes need to be.
There's no question about it. That's the continuity of that and the promotion of it is critically important. And I think that's one of the main benefits of having an exclusive media partner throughout the whole season, each season. I think that they can use different platforms and events to kind of cross-promote their properties. And so, obviously, as you saw way back when feels like ages ago when we were still playing NFL, but you saw that they were really focusing on promoting the Indianapolis 500-mile race. And then you've already seen, as you alluded, the St. Pete commercial. And the way to be able to do that best is week to week. And the easiest way to do that week to week is to be on the same platform with the same partner throughout the series season. Right. So I think that we're in good shape. NBC does a tremendous job. They've got other huge properties, and they'll include the Indianapolis 500 is one of those. But even week to week on the other races, they're just really, really committed and excited about promoting the series, and we know that they'll help us grow.
Have they announced who their broadcast team is yet? I mean, I personally like to listen to Paul Tracy. It's always fun to, and when Bobby Unser did it, he said, "I did that." I mean, that's
you've seen the announcement. This is who it's going to be, and recently there was even an announcement about the Indianapolis 500. So we're excited about where the series is going. We're excited about the commentators coming back, and we hope that everybody's excited about the 2019 NTT IndyCar Series.
Well, of course they will be. Mike Tirico, to my knowledge, he's never done any broadcasting of television, but I mean of motorsports. But he doesn't have to. I don't think. If you get the right guys, he's smart enough to know how to ask the question. Let them answer it to feed the fans.
We know how good he is, and what a name to be added to the hosts for the Indianapolis 500. I think his reputation precedes him. He's one of the best in the business, and we're fortunate to have the opportunity through NBC to have him call the race.
Now, I got notice back a while and said, now's the time. You got to get the NBC Gold. And I said to myself,
get it.
I said, oh my, what is that? So I started reading on it, and I don't know if I misread it. I must have, because I thought it's if you subscribe now, that you get everything that follows when this IndyCar season is over. You get, there's Olympics, there's all kinds of things, but that's not true. It's just, I subscribed to Gold. I paid my $49.99 before the price went up and I go broke.
Until March 10th, right? I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's upcoming to get it. But as you and I were talking before we started, a young man that used to be vice president of IMS Productions said, network television is not going to be the future. The future is going to be internet, digital, streaming, and he's absolutely right, because that's what is coming. And you were telling me that when you subscribe to this service, you could carry it in your hand, which I can't with a flip phone.
Not with that phone. If you pull that phone out, I didn't know that's what you'd be pulling out of your pocket. I expected something like an iPhone or something.
Oh, sure. But all the information will be there. You'll be able to get information. You'll be able to see. And I walk through the stands and I'll see people watching. And the race cars are going in front of them. They're watching this stupid thing in their hand.
Right.
But you can get information, listen to it, that you don't get when you're there. You can hear the pit reporters and what they're saying and what's going on. So there is an advantage to it. I got to think that in May, this goal thing is going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
Have you put all the crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's yet, or is it still being formulated?
Well, I'll tease it a little bit, but not too much, as we're still working on the month of May schedule. But I can tell you that on NBC Sports Gold, like you already alluded, we're going to get a lot of content that's exclusive, I think, including in May. But we'll wait later to go into detail on that. But I think the great news about NBC Sports Gold is you'll get all of the practices and qualifying sessions live, and that includes Indy Lights. And you'll also have everything except live races for IndyCar. On NBC Sports Gold, you'll have encore races. So after the telecast, within hours, you'll be able to go get that race VOD, video on demand, on NBC Sports Gold. So NBC Sports Gold is really for the true diehard motorsports fan. There'll be ancillary programming, create, different kind of shows that are motorsports related about our series on NBC Sports Gold. But I think the ability to live stream practices in qualifying session and get races after they've happened on the telecast on demand, I think is something that you've never seen before, and we're really, really thrilled to have that opportunity for the first time for IndyCar.
Well, I no longer go to I used to go to all of them for years. I went to every event. And I don't go as often, so I would watch up until now. They streamed at racecontrol.indycar.com, would stream the practices, some of the qualifying, but I don't know if they did lights or the ladder program. But will you have the same broadcasters on Gold doing the practice and qualify have been there now with Mark Janes and Anders Krohn and so forth?
No, what makes NBC Sports Gold so exciting is you're going to have the NBC commentators and fully produced shows for practices and qualifying like never before. So, for those who initially saw that they were going to have to pay to get some of that content, I think they need to think about it a little bit differently, and that's what makes it exciting. Is it's a fully produced show, NBC quality content, NBC commentary, and a fully packaged opportunity going right to the consumer that they can get anytime. Before, on IndyCar.com and on the mobile app, what we were able to provide is what IndyCar was capable of putting on. But now, with the muscle of NBC, you're going to have a much more polished product on NBC Sports Gold than you ever had on our digital platforms. So it's a way to grow the sport. As you mentioned, it's the trend. We're happy to have the opportunity to have a direct-to-consumer offering, and I think that you're going to experience something if you sign up, and do so before March 10, before the price goes up. I think if you sign up for NBC Sports Gold, you're going to see fully polished, packaged, produced IndyCar content like you've never been able to get before. Some of it will be exclusive to NBC Sports Gold, so you won't be able to get it anywhere else. And like I said, I'll tease a little bit. I think you'll have an opportunity to get some even more exclusive content in May. But it's something that is incomparable to what we've had in the past. And so we look forward to it, and we hope you're excited about it.
What happens to the poor IMS production people? Are they being thrown under the bus? Where are they going?
They're still working. They're a big part of what you see on the NBC telecast, including the content you'll see on NBC Sports Gold. So Kevin Seblet and his team are very, very busy. They're working hand in hand with NBC, and in order for us to make this what we think it's going to be over the next few years with NBC, IMSP is a big part of it. So don't worry about them; they're well taken care of.
Well, I just don't want to have to, take a sandwich over to Mark Janes because he's hungry. He's not working. I feel bad for the poor guy. Now, you had mentioned that you're working on putting some races together prior to the start of the regular IndyCar season here. I know that the Gold Coast in Australia is looking forward to. I'm sure you are involved in that. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, you said I can't be on this week because I'm going to be in Australia. Poor guy. Are you involved in all of the negotiating going on outside of the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean it's part of building the schedule, and so we're looking at up to 2 events before we kick off in St. Pete. We've been looking for great opportunities that would be good homes and host cities to IndyCar, and of course the Gold Coast and Surfers Paradise is one. I mean, we have fond memories long before my time of the tremendous events we had there, concluding in 2008. And so Mark Miles and I took a trip there, I think the week before Thanksgiving, and we met with the premier, and she welcomed us and explained to us how eager she was to get this done. But the details matter, and it's really, really difficult, as I previously said, to get any race done, let alone one overseas, due to the logistics and all of the important details that matter in order to make it happen. And so we're working on it. We've had great communication with the Queensland government. They're interested. We're interested. We want to do it. Both parties are working really, really hard to try to find a way. But as I always say, it's a long way from the cup to the lip. And so we have to figure out how to make it happen.
I worked on a race team, and we traveled a lot. We went down south into Brazil, and we went to the Gold Coast. And to pack up to go was the biggest pain in the butt you could ever imagine, because you got to itemize everything. I mean, nuts, bolts, everything when you go. So it was, I dreaded it. It was fun once we got there, but to get ready to go.
Focus on that. It was fun once you got there. It was a great event, right?
Oh, jeez. There was talk about a race in Mexico City. Has that kind of gone away now, or is there still some chatter going on?
Look, we're always looking for first-class cities to host IndyCar events. You're going to hear me say that over and over. Nothing's out of the question within reason. I mean, we see what happens for the Formula One Grand Prix in Mexico City. The folks that promote that event do a tremendous job. The turnout's awesome. It's one of their best events. We would love to be in Mexico City. We've got Mexican drivers now that are really, really growing and emerging, and we'll see what happens. But it was a little premature. We need to kind of grow our fan base in Mexico City, and so we've kind of taken a pause on it, but we're very, very keen to go there at some point under the right circumstances. And so over the next couple of years, we'll keep having those conversations, and we'll see if we're able to break into Mexico City.
What about Brazil? There's a few Brazilian drivers in the series that are fairly good. That I would think they have drawn in the past, and interestingly enough, in the USF 2000 series, Dr. Jack Miller and Rubens Barrichello have teamed up. They're running both of their sons, and of course Rubens is one of the. I think he's run more Formula Ones than anybody, if I'm not mistaken. Run more races, run more miles. So he brings some interest to that series, and I think something else that should make the job of getting the program available in Europe is the number of Formula One drivers are now coming to IndyCar. Some young drivers that should have a following, and it should build from there. So if you get them into countries in Europe, that should build. Should be a good way to build. And even when, I just forgot his name. The Englishman that came over. He was a Formula One champion. He almost won his first 500 when he was here. Forgot his name. Yeah, and Nigel Mansell, had a huge following. So with some of the kids, and they are kids to me anyway, coming here, that should help sell the product in these countries. And I'm sure you can sell it. It's probably already been taken care of in Spain. With Alonso here, shoo.
So on the race front, obviously you started by asking about Brazil. I mean, Brazil has loved IndyCar for a long time, and vice versa. And so we've had fond memories of races and great events there in the past. And when the right opportunity presents itself, I'm sure someday we'll go back there. In terms of, I'll just lump the rest of Europe and the world into the question I think you were asking, which is, look, we've got a diverse series in terms of the participants, and so there's a lot of great places that we could have tremendous races. Europe is a little challenging given the weather and the time of year when we would go there. But if the right opportunity presents itself, and we're always looking, we'll consider it heavily.
Well, I'd hate to think that you get to where you are and you say, well, that's it, I'm done with my job. I got to have you on the move. Got to have you busy.
We're always busy. I think that's the thing. I think that sometimes you hear tidbits in the news and the media about a particular event, and you think that we're just focused on that one outside of the U.S. or even domestically. You hear a Richmond or you hear a Chicagoland, and you think, but we're always looking all over for ways to make our schedule better. We're very, very happy with where the schedule is now, but of course we're missing the international events, and we want those. So we're looking for those, but it's not limited to just the Gold Coast or just Mexico City. It's there's a lot of possibilities, and we always are approached by host cities and governments and promoters in other countries that are interested in bringing IndyCar there. But again, until it's done, there's not really a whole lot to talk about.
Right.
But know that we're always watching, and the same is true for adding events inside the U.S. I mean, nothing's out of the question.
Good.
But we've got to consider the markets and time of year and the rest of the schedule, and I think we do a pretty good job of that.
But I still think there's time. I mean, last year it seemed to me there was a couple of pauses where there was 2 or 3 weeks when nothing happened. I had to go cut the grass. I couldn't do anything. And Chicagoland, or Kansas City, or Kentucky, or for that matter, Richmond. I hope they go back to Richmond now. Well, like most of the folks here, when I started in IndyCar in the 60s, that's all there was ovals. That's what made IndyCar what it is. Now you've got 5 ovals. Poor Ed Carpenter, he's got 5 races, and he's got to stay home and cut the grass. And what I'm told as well, we've got 5 ovals, we've got 5 street courses, and 5 road courses. I'd rather have 10 ovals, 5 and 5. That'd be fine for me. Not for you, because you travel all the time, and you might come home and they say, "Oh, really? It's nice of you to show up."
Well, fortunately, you're not the only IndyCar fan.
I know.
But I understand the point. And look, if you ask, 10 different fans, what kind of composition of the schedule they'd want to see in terms of ovals, road courses, and street courses, they'd all have a different answer.
But I bet most of them would have oval number 1.
Well,
right?
Am
I right? No. What the hell do you know?
So I saw 6 or 7 people clap, but there's maybe 30 in the room.
Well, yeah, but Howdy couldn't clap. He kept missing his hands. He can't get them together.
No, obviously, the reputation of IndyCar and the connection of the Indianapolis 500 on oval is, we know that ovals are in part the bread and butter of the sport. But we've got to make sure they're the right ovals. We've got to make sure that they're in places that we're not just concentrated in the Midwest, but that we're trying to spread across the U.S. and make sure that we've got a good representation in various markets. And so, that's just the way it is. We love the diversity. We don't ever want to be where we're all ovals. Some people might say we should only be road and street courses. And so it's just the balance we're trying to maintain.
They don't know what IndyCar's about. That's all.
So I think we work hard at trying to maintain the diversity, but it's, again, like there's no number that we want to hit or have to hit in terms of races. We just want the schedule to be right. The same is true in terms of number of ovals against road courses and street ovals. There's no, it has to be a third and a third and a third quota. It's just that's the way it's worked out, and we are proud to tout that diversity of the different circuits.
Have you got a lot of interest from the countries where these new incoming drivers are coming from that have been in Formula One? Mr. Rehnquist, what's his name? Are there countries interested in getting the telecast in there?
Yeah, I don't think we'll have many dark markets in terms of some of the major countries that support IndyCar. I think you'll see that we'll have great television media partners, broadcast partners in all over the world once it's all said and done before we kick off in St. Pete. And so of course, like Alonso in Spain, obviously that's a key market, right? And so are the homes of all the other drivers in our series. So that's a good kind of a map to look at in terms of where you think there's interest and where you think there's a strong following of IndyCar. Just look at the places from which some of our drivers hail, and you can figure it out pretty easily. So I think you're right on point when it comes to trying to look at some of the key markets and the ways we identify key markets. It has a lot to do with where the drivers come from.
I would make the prediction that if you spread and cover Europe fully enough, I think there are going to be race fans that are going to say, these guys are better than Formula One. They got to run big ovals, small ovals, permanent road courses, street courses. They got to cover it all, and to win. And then when I say ovals, you go to Newton, Iowa. It's 7/8 of a mile. The tracks that they go to, they have to master. And it seems there's a young man that's been able to do that 5 times, Scott Dixon, who came from Europe and has mastered what it is. And it's funny, a lot of the drivers, most of them that I've ever talked to that have come here from Europe, I said, "You ever run an oval?" "No." You're in for a real surprise. And the thing that's neat about it, once they get it and understand what it is, they love it. They've never done it, and they get here and go, "Wow, this is pretty good."
Yeah, I think it's true. I think Formula One fans, really start to like IndyCar more and more as the years go on. I think if you're a fan of open wheel racing, then you should like both. And so we're seeing that, and I think there are even opportunities for us to kind of capitalize on Formula One fans who get introduced to our product and get an opportunity to see IndyCar, and vice versa. I think so. I don't. It's not a competition in the sense that you can only like one or the other. In Europe, if you love Formula One and you get an opportunity to see IndyCar, hopefully as a lead-in from Formula One, meaning after a Formula One race, that's a good opportunity for us to maintain eyeballs and for us to hopefully grow our fan base. And so I agree with the idea that a lot of Formula One fans see our sport and are really entertained and impressed with the idea that we do ovals, roads, and streets. But I don't look at it in a sense where we're trying to necessarily steal their fans. I just think that the more the merrier, and I think that the stronger we are, the stronger they are, and vice versa. Hopefully we can borrow from each other in terms of fans.
I think you'll borrow from each other, but I really believe that the Formula One fans, when they see IndyCar and watch the competition, how close the racing is and so forth, I think a lot of them will go, "Ooh, that's pretty good."
I think that's right. I think if that's what you mean, that they'll be interested in us also. Yeah. But in terms of us stealing their fans, I don't think it works that way. There's history, and we're realistic about the idea that Formula One fans have been Formula One fans for a long time. But we do hope that they see another open wheel racing product, in IndyCar in particular, as really exhilarating, fun, entertaining racing, and we hope that they can also become IndyCar fans.
And then when they realize that Ferrari and McLaren and some of those have $200 and $300 million budgets, and these guys are running and competitive and going fast for 5, 6, 8, 10 million. I think, good grief, we pay our drivers more than that. So, but there is one race that I think even I might consider going to. Have you talked to anybody in Monaco?
No.
Oh. Okay.
That was a quick answer.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come here. I know we've talked several times, and you wanted to get more programming put together before you came in. And I think the gold program, although I had to pay for it, I didn't used to have to pay for it. It was free.
Well, look what you're going to get. I think you're going to be thrilled you had to pay for it when you see what you're getting for your money.
All right, then I'm going to stay home in May. I won't go to the track because my phone won't show anything. And I'm going to St. Pete, so I'll just stay at my friend's house and I'll watch it on their computer. Because my phone won't watch it either. Thanks for your time. Thanks for what you're doing. I think you bring something that's kind of unusual to the series, the sport, and your experience prior to being here, with sports and athletes and so forth is really showing up well. So I thank you for what you're doing. What the whole gang is putting together, I think it's phenomenal.
Well, thanks for the kind words, and as always, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Stephen Starks, Vice President of Marketing for the IndyCar Series. My next 2 guests are here. I know one of them didn't shave to get here, but he's here anyway. I want to remind you that Sam Pierce Chevrolet is in Daleville, Indiana. You got to go north on I-65 to exit 234. Yeah, both of you. 234, about a mile, you'll see Sam Pierce Chevrolet, and you'll find one thing about Sam. He always stands alongside you, not behind you when you buy a car. So if you get him, you will be very pleased that you did. The Indy Racing Experience car is a phenomenal way to find out what is it like to drive these cars. What do the drivers like about it? So you can go to IndyRacingExperience.com and pick out a date and a location and give them a call, or you can go online to book your flight, your ride. And in the promo box, put SJ1. You get a 50% discount. Or you can call Shonda at 317-243-7171. She'll be glad to help you. The next SVRA event is upcoming. It'll be February 28th to March 3rd at Sebring International Raceway. If you're anywhere in Florida area, you're going to be down. You've got to go to Sebring to see this. Their shows are phenomenal. The SVRA is really something to see. The cars that you knew as a kid or had heard about, they're there. A lot of them are there and they're running. So if you get a chance, the 28th of February, get down to Sebring. And if you are a vintage car fan, you got to go to svra.com and subscribe to the Vintage Racing Quarterly. It is an absolute first-class magazine, good stories, good tales of what's going on. You'll love it, so subscribe to it. And if it's time to get insurance for your home, your car, or your commercial property, call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. His number is 317-248-0070. Get a quote. You'll be surprised. Better coverage for less money. That's VP Insurance, located at 5004 16th Street in Speedway. 317-248-0070. And if you're interested in buying a vintage car, the Grand King Shops has a 1977 Don Edmonds Auto Research Lindsay Hopkins chassis number LHL4. It's got a Drake Offie on it. It's ready to go. So if you're interested, stop by there. Take a look at the car. You might really like it. And if you're interested in going on a tour to race shops and to the Grand King Shops and so forth, you can go in class. You can ride in it. Well, not this limousine, but they have the full-size one of this. They'll take you for a ride. You got to call the shop, book the travel.
Is that how you ride around in a limo all day?
Oh, well, absolutely. Are you kidding? You'll enjoy it. It's a great thing. They'll pick you up wherever you want to be, and they'll drop you off at the same place you started from. So it's a great opportunity. So call the Grand King Shops, book it. My next two guests I'm very pleased to have here. Both have been here prior, but I'll start with the lady first. She is the IMS Media Relations Manager. She saw her first 500 in 1990 as a high school graduation gift. Boy, they bought you a $30 ticket for graduation. Wow. And has been here ever since. And whenever an event takes place at the Speedway, Susie will be front and center making all the notifications to everybody of what's going on, when it is, and she makes sure everything's set so when the doors open, it's ready to go. How she does this, plus follows the Speedway high school cheerleaders. And there's a reason for that. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll get to it in a minute. But please welcome Miss Susie Elliott. Sitting next to her is the guy who just got a promotion. He's Senior Director of Communication for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Hulman Company. Corporation communications will be added to his responsibilities. He's had a college roommate that brought him to the race for the first time in 2008. Now he's taken over the whole damn place. Please welcome Mr. Alex Damron. Susie, you just came back from Florida where you were at, was it Bubba Raceway, I think?
Correct. Bubba Raceway.
And then you went to the Daytona 500.
Yes.
And you, Friday night, I saw you and said hello, and are you coming Tuesday? And you said yes, and before the sun even thought about coming up, you're on your way south. How do you have time to do anything? Because you're on the move all the time.
I can sleep a lot later when I retire.
Oh,
So yeah, we left work at 10:30 Friday night. Was on a plane at 5:15. Flew for Charlotte, landed in Daytona, went to Bubba Raceway for the USAC Sprint Car closing night. I watched all of those evenings on Flow Racing, talk about streaming. They even talked about the future of, so yeah, I bought that Flow package. We'll buy NBC Gold as well. And drove back to Daytona and went to the 500.
Hey, that's 2 sales.
That's right.
She and I, that's 2. Woo. They're booming. What got you hooked on motorsports?
Well, I grew up in the sport. My dad raced sprint cars, and I think I was...
And your dad was Greg Staub.
Greg Staub, correct. And then I met my husband at Lucas Oil Raceway, which was IRP. And his brother was Tony Elliott, so we've raced our entire lives. We've both grown up with it.
His brother, not because Jim is sitting here, he was on this show probably 5 or 6 times, and anytime I'd invite him, he would always say, I can make it this week or next week or whatever it was. Great guy. Tremendous loss, but a great guy. And you were his crew chief.
Yes.
Oh, you worked for him. Oh. He told you to go get a sandwich. You said, yes, okay, Tony, I'll go get a sandwich. Now, you work probably 15 hours a day, but you always manage to get to basketball games. How does that happen?
Correct.
And why are you going to Speedway basketball games?
Well, we have a senior in high school. She's a Speedway Plug cheerleader. Go Spark Plugs. So, yeah.
Spark plugs. I love that.
I do too. There's a wing and wheel on the gym floor if no one knows that. So
Yeah.
that's always front and center in my pictures.
Yes, I noticed that too. So what's your favorite sport? Basketball, cheerleading, or racing?
Motorsports.
I
yeah.
see. Don't tell her that. She'll say, oh, I thought I was
It's
number
probably
one.
her favorite too. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alex, my friend.
What's up, dude?
Hey, bro, you said anytime invite me, I'll be there. I invited him, he said I can't make it. Well, that worked out real well. You, as I understand it, as a college stud, lived in the basement of Dr. Abrams.
I did, Dr. John Abrams. You need your eyes fixed, he'll take care of you.
I go there.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize you knew him, so I'm going to cancel my next appointment. But I understood that that's how you got involved and introduced to motorsports, and here you are.
Yeah, so I was an intern at WIBC that summer, and I was living at Doc John's house. His buddy Mike was a good friend of mine, and they said, we're going to the Indy 500, you need to tag along. And I really, obviously everybody grows up hearing about the Indy 500 and seeing footage, but I didn't quite know what to expect. And I remember one of the things that amazed me was, I think on the way in I heard about 5 different languages, which was really fascinating to me, to see the people who had traveled to the event and subsequently have come to learn. For example, last year we sent our blue envelopes to all 50 states in more than 20 countries. So amazing statistic about the reach of the Indy 500 when you think about it. But that was something that blew me away right away. And then I sat in my seat and I saw how fast the cars go. And that really blew me away, just the sheer speed and, of course, the sound. And really just the full color of race day. I think there's really nothing like it from pre-race all the way to the checkered flag. But I became hooked. And the next time I went, I have to tell you, so I went with the doc and sat in the grandstands along the front stretch the first time. The next time I went in the infield, and it was a year later, and a buddy of mine said, "We're leaving at 3 a.m." And I said, "What do you mean we're leaving at 3 a.m., man?" And he was like, "Oh, we're doing it differently this time. You're gonna hang out in the infield. It's a different experience." But I have had. Since then, several more race day experiences, both as a fan and now working the event, and there's really nothing like it. And each time, I don't know about you guys, but what amazes me is how fast it goes. I mean, there's so much build-up, and you're so excited for it, and it's a wonderful, euphoric experience, but it is over like that. And that, I think, is a sign of a good time. But Doug will say he's almost depressed when it's over, and I join him a little bit in that.
Well, one thing about Doug, he does like motorsports, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job as president of Speedway. Your new promotion, Senior Director of Communications, does that mean that you sing a lot, or you make a lot of phone calls? What does that mean? What do you do now? What did it expand from to?
Yeah, I think I would say that the main thing, Hulman Company compromises several things, from IMSP to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to IndyCar. To Clabber Girl as well. The main piece of it is to make sure we're all connected and talking to each other and doing as much as we can to sort of cohesively explain the benefits of being together and all that we offer, to our fans and all that we mean to the state of Indiana too. But it's really essentially as much as we can to make sure that we're lockstep in promoting the IndyCar Series and the Indy 500 and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway altogether. By the way, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah? We're good with that? So the last time I was here, you told me you'd think about coming to the Snake Pit on race day. Now, are you going to take up that gig and be our live reporter?
No. But I was there last year.
The offer still stands.
I went there, and I'm listening to the music they're playing, and I said, what the hell is this? I don't have a clue what it is. And some of the, the Legend and whatever concerts they're having. I don't know those people either. I don't know who they are. Now I know.
You don't listen to Skrillex.
Who? What?
He's like a modern Sinatra, man.
So is Harry Connick Jr. He's fairly new, but I'm from the Buddy Rich era with jazz. All these guys, Jimmy Smith on organ.
That's good stuff.
And I don't. Some of these groups I don't know. I was listening today to Del Shannon. You ever heard of him? No. See, so we can reverse. You said you have.
I have. My dad was a fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're too young for that. He must have told you about it.
He did.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it about the Speedway that gets you? Because as I said, you're everywhere. If there's something going on, we hear from you. Here's the event. Here it is. Tell us if you're coming. You're into everything.
Well, I think part of it is just growing up in Indiana. I moved here when I was 6, and we took a field trip in 3rd grade, right? Sat in the grandstands with my sack luncheon, with my classmates, and the cars, the sights, the sounds, the smells, all of that. I went home and told my mom, one of these days I want to work there. It's the legacy of the property. It's the legacy of the family. I don't know. It gets a hold of you.
Your dad was quite a good racer himself. Did you go to the races frequently? I mean, every time they ran, it was a family trip.
Well, yeah, he lived in Ohio. I lived here, so once I got my license, I would get in the car and drive to wherever. So I I remember one time, a funny story, he was trying to tell me how, this was before, MapQuest or before GPS, any of that cell phones. My first cell phone was in a bag that I actually, plugged into the cigarette lighter of the car. So he was trying to tell me how to get to Eldora, and he, very good at directions. And I just remember him saying, get on I-70 and go east, and then go to, I think it was 118, and wait till you see North Star, which was Annie Oakley's grave. And that was my landmark. And to this day, I'm a landmark person when I drive, when I'm giving directions, is the landmarks. So, yeah, I went all over.
Obviously, you got hooked. What was your dream? You said, someday I'm going to work at the Speedway. What did you have in mind to do?
At that point, when you're 8 years old, 10 years old, you don't really know. And I just kind of fell into it. I was the admin in our PR department, and then we had some changes in '07, and everything I've learned on the PR side is basically street cred. Learn from mistakes, learn from good things that happen. Because when I started there, we had 7 people in that department, and that was back in the older days, and things have shifted. And I'd like to think that I've learned a lot and have a good work ethic.
How many people work with you now?
There are 4 of us. 4.
Yeah, you went from 7 to 4. That's good. That means what you used to do, you do 3 times more of.
Maybe. Yeah.
No, maybe. I get your emails and your Facebook stuff.
There are a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah, they are a lot. I'm thinking, Jesus, does she ever go? Jim? Are you guys ever? Is she ever at home? What the hell do you do?
He works for Elia's Custom Trailers.
Oh, that's right, you do. Yeah, I went up there. The business has picked up now that he's there, isn't it? I'm sure.
It has, yes.
Tony was good at that. But he'd always take the time, I'll come down to the show.
Sure.
He always did. A good guy. What is your goal? What would you like to accomplish? Where would you like to say, I got here, then, 40 years from now when you retire?
4 years.
Well, you're young.
Did you say 4 years?
40.
40. No, I'm not.
She's not retiring in 4 years.
What would you like to, what position would you like to have? Get rid of Alex?
No. I
don't
think
want to get rid of
we're a
Alex?
good team. I think as a media relations manager, I work with local affiliates, regional affiliates, bloggers, like media members like yourself, that I want to have a good relationship. I want people to think that I made a difference there.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
You have.
Thank you.
You really have. It's unbelievable what this young lady does. Good grief. What's your goal? Are you where you want to be? Where would you like to end up? How high?
I want to host this show with you. You know what? And it sounds like a cop-out, but I'll tell you two things. So, you know this. I was working in politics out in D.C. before I came and worked here. And I came pretty close to doing something else. And then this lined up. And this wasn't necessarily always the plan, but I've enjoyed it very much. And it's been a blessing in my life in so many ways, because I've fallen in love with not just the event, but the sport and the people. And I have relationships with somebody like this, who's really I call her my PR mom, because I've learned so much from her and she's taught me so much. So I love this gig, and right now I really just want to do it and contribute. Moving forward, I think we live in such an interesting media landscape. Things are changing, and there's it'll be. I mean, he was just up here talking about streaming and NBC Gold, and I truly the work he does is a testament to sort of the landscape that we have right now. But I think for me, I'd like to figure out how meaningful and quality communications that's longer than a tweet can be relevant and work in today's world. I don't know how or where I would like to do that, but that's honestly my goal on some levels.
Would you like to go back to politics?
I would never say never, but so my prior boss always said she did the job she had really well, and it worked out for her very well, and that's kind of sort of been my attitude. I would never say no to that. I guess I think, I've really enjoyed the world of sports because it makes people happy. I love going out to the grid on race day and seeing how excited people are, and I like playing a small part in that. And politics is great because I think when you work in it, you're trying to make a difference and you're trying to help people. And I like that too. So I wouldn't say I'd never do it again, but it's not sort of in the immediate future for me.
Well, if the vice president called and said, "Hey,"
he's got people.
Yeah, but he might want somebody with your experience. Now the governor, I'm surprised he hasn't gone. He's a race nut. They tell me.
So the governor is maybe one of the biggest race fans I've ever met. So we actually Doug Bowles and a group of us went over 100 days from the 500. By the way, did anybody go to our party on Friday night?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Awesome. We had 2,000 people at that event 100 days before the Indy 500. And I have to share with you, and then I'll get back to our governor, who is an excellent race fan. Marcus Erickson from Aerosmith Peterson Motorsports turned to me in amazement that we had 2,000 people 100 days before this event. From his experience coming over here and now a part of IndyCar, to see something like that was so impactful for him now, how he's looking forward to the season and participating and being part of our fan culture, really. But back to the governor. So a group of us went over to the residence to give him a milk bottle. We do milk bottle deliveries 100 days out from the 500. And we'll have to come on here and deliver one to you sometime soon. But the governor just cannot get enough of the race, and he didn't want to go on to his next appointment. He wanted to get his milk bottle, talk about this year's Indy 500, hear how the pathway to St. Pete is unfolding on the series side. My goal for him is I don't know if everybody knows this, but he wears cowboy boots almost everywhere. So I want to get him a pair of checkered flag cowboy boots this May. I think they'd look pretty good on him.
I have been put in touch with him, or his guy, Kevin Sears.
Yeah.
And
Kevin's a great guy.
I've talked to him 5 or 6, 7, 8 times, and when the announcement of Gamebridge was on, he was there.
Yeah.
So I weeded my way through all of the people, and I said, by the way, I walked up and I introduced myself, and I said, I host the Autosport radio show, and I've invited. He said, I know about that. I want to do it. He said, I will do it. I'll talk to my people tomorrow. Whether he did or not, I don't know.
So, little known story, my first job interview in the state of Indiana was with Governor Holcomb when he was working for Governor Daniels as his deputy chief of staff. So it's an unbelievably small world.
I've had 2 governors on, Governor Daniels and I forgot the other one. I forget what his name was. I've had 2 mayors, Mayor Goldsmith, who I got through Doug. At the time, I was at a baseball game, the midget race in Busch Stadium, and I told somebody, I said, I want to get the mayor, because he was there somewhere. And I said, how do I do that? He said, talk to him. I said, who's that? That's Doug Bowles. That's his PR guy, communications. I talked to Doug, and within 3 weeks, the mayor was there. So, and I heard when the governor and Andy and Sarah were over in Italy, and a number of other people, I said, how was the governor over? He said, all he talked about was racing. So they went to Delara, and they went to all these other places, and he was just beside himself. So I got to get him in here. Plus, I think he's a classmate of Tim Sidrick, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
So he and
yes.
Tim are very close. So, but until he gets here, you two are here now. Susie, did you take any schooling to do what you're doing, or did?
Well, I went to IUPUI, and I just have a general business degree, so nothing on the PR side, communication side. But as I said, everything's pretty much learned.
But having followed your dad and seen what happens, I would think you would get an idea. You talk to those reporters come, and there's people coming. You get the idea of what basic is, but here it's obviously thousands as opposed to.
Magnified, yeah, thousands of times. You're right, right.
How many silly questions do you get a day, not counting mine?
Oh, well, I mean, no questions. I always say, I had a teacher once that mentioned this in like 8th grade. I've never forgotten it. No question is silly or stupid if you don't know the answer, because someone legitimately needs to know that answer.
Do you ever have to consult Donald to get an answer for something?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He was a speaker at the Grand King Shops a couple weeks ago, and I suggested just ask him how you started and just let him go, and it was phenomenal. I knew some of it because I've known him for 40 years.
Right.
But didn't know the stuff that he talked about that nobody knew. And the people that left there said, "Wow, that was really interesting." The guy does, and he said, "I'm not I don't have a photographic memory." How the hell do you remember that stuff? I can't remember yesterday half the time now. But the stuff he knows is unbelievable, and it's good for the series. It's good for the Speedway to have somebody that can talk about it. It's like the vintage cars now coming back so strong. You can see what was and now what is. You get to see it and how it built. So I think it's kind of interesting. Susie, is there something coming up that's going to really be spectacular? Now, the 100 days before I was really impressed with the turnout. The people were there, and I ran into a number of people that I know. And most of them went the other way when they saw me. But you think basketball is big in Indiana, which it is.
Sure.
But so is motorsports.
Right.
Really big, and I was really impressed. As I guess you guys were a little bit surprised. Was it bigger crowd this year than last year and the year before?
Yeah, this year was bigger than last. 2016 was the first year that we threw that party, and that party ran until midnight, so it was a little bit longer. I think the turnout was probably as equal, but it's just gotten, it's gotten to be where fans look forward to coming in February. And they're legitimately happy just to be there. We opened the bricks. We had a transporter. The Gainbridge transporter was there for fans to tour. We had the drivers there. Of course, they loved that. Jim Cornelison was there and sang the anthem. Did a phenomenal job, as always. And it was a great time.
The Chicago Blackhawks, by the way. He sings the national anthem.
Yes.
Chicago Blackhawks. I used to have season tickets to that. Back when Bobby Hull played, you never heard of him. Dennis, oh, wow. And Stan McKee.
I like hockey, man.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Just don't check me up here.
How did you get Mr. Cornelius there? How did he get there? Was he just driving through
Alex,
town?
you want to tell the story?
To sing back home again, or at the event?
Or at the event Friday night.
At the event Friday night. So Jim, I think, I'm going to start with the story of Jim coming to sing at the Indy 500. In many ways, obviously he's known for singing the national anthem, and when we called him, I think understandably he thought we were going to ask that question. And when we asked about back home again, and he took a second and said, sure, I'd love to give it a go. And in the build-up to his first Indy 500 singing back home again in Indiana in 2017, Jim watched a lot of footage of the Jim that many of our fans came in to know and love over decades, and learned a lot about the history of the 500 and the song. And then he came on race day, and I think he had truly a religious experience, kind of the way many of us did at our first Indy 500. And I'll never forget him texting me after the race about what an adventure he had and how much he loved engaging with the fans and taking in the whole event. And this is a guy who's sung at Stanley Cup Finals and NFL championships, the NFC Championship game for the Bears and so many other things. But this was a really unique experience for him in many ways because he was singing a different song. So I think over the last couple of years, Jim has fallen in love with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500. So when we called him and said, hey, we think our fans would love to hang out with you 100 days before the Indy 500 because you're part of their Indy 500 experience now, his next question was, well, what's the date and what's the time I'm there?
It's amazing. He probably has performed since 2017 in front of more live audiences than most any other entertainer probably in the world.
Yeah,
he's singing for 300,000 people or more.
So in the last year of his life, he's done, of course, the Blackhawks games, but he's also done the Indy 500 and specifically the New Year's Day game at Notre Dame Stadium, the Winter Classic, and many other things as well. He also performed at Mika Auction Show recently. Jim is just one. For those of you who haven't heard his anthem yet, you should go on YouTube and take a look at it. It's unbelievable. And hearing him talk about sort of the way he views singing the anthem, the responsibility of it, and also the sort of passion he puts into it it's really interesting to hear. And I think he's sort of infused back home again in Indiana with that same thought process. It's a real. He doesn't just sing. He puts a lot of deep thought into how he sings and the emotion he sings with, and it's been interesting for me. So I have no tone whatsoever. I even feel bad for the shower when I sing. But it's been interesting for me to get to know a world-class performer and see the care that he takes, not just to prepare his vocal cords for the performance, but to prepare sort of his mental approach to being able to do it right.
Does he entertain? Otherwise, is he a professional singer that sings other than the national anthem?
Yeah. So he sings. One of his biggest passions is jazz, and he sings quite a bit of jazz. He actually, works with a community of artists out in Chicago to put together, a few different tracks a year that are sort of fresh and new and original. And yeah, he can do a lot of things, for sure.
Well, I gotta talk to him when he comes. I want you to. I talked to him the other night, but he wouldn't know me from a bag of doorknobs.
So you're a Blackhawks fan, right? Is that what I gather from that?
Part of it,
He'll let you wear the championship ring. He'll weigh your hand down.
Yeah, well, sure. It'll fall off in my pocket. I'll probably lose. But I would like to talk to him because I have a good friend of mine who's passed away, unfortunately. That's a big jazz guy. He was Hugh Hefner's number one. Hugh Hefner was his number one fan. He used to be on his television show all the time. And I'm sure he would know who he is and we talk about it. Anyway, so, Susie, what's next for you? What's the next big thing aside from the race? I'm sure there are all kinds of events going on.
Right. We have, we'll have a 50-day. Well, no, probably the biggest for us from a media standpoint would be the historic flag raising at Gate 1. That goes up the Friday that the IndyCars are on track in St. Pete. So we typically pick a local celebrity, to go up and put those flags up at Gate 1. It's a big media, kind of a kickoff to spring for IMS. Howdy was waving, sorry. Hi, Howdy.
Is he still awake?
He is.
Smoke.
But yeah, Gate 1 flag raising will be big. We've got 50 days out, so you never know what can happen for 50 days till the Indy 500. Stay tuned.
I'll stay tuned. All I do is turn my computer on if the damn thing works. I'll find out. What's new? What's up for you? What's the big thing you're going to have going on or promoting or whatever it is you do?
Yeah, so I think one thing I will point out to everybody, and Susie's right, 50 days, that the flag raising ahead of St. Pete are all key. I think something for everybody to be aware of, and Mr. Starks touched on this quite a bit, but the relationship with NBC is I think is something you're going to see not only in the content available to fans when it comes to race content, but sort of the way they're going to go out and promote the IndyCar Series and the Indy 500 is something we're working on very carefully. So for those of you who watched Bears-Eagles, for instance, NFL Wildcard Weekend, you saw a commercial air promoting the Indy 500 and the IndyCar Series, way pre 100 days out. And that level of promotion is something that is going to continue sort of across NBC's verticals as we move toward the season. So take a look at, if you're a hockey fan, some of NBC's upcoming hockey programming, because you'll see some PR activities and some marketing activities as it relates to the Indy 500 and the start of the season in St. Pete there. But really getting that relationship off, working with everybody at IndyCar and IMS, but to get that relationship off to a really strong start is going to be a key thing we're doing.
Do you try and use, when you have these big sporting events and NBC's telecasting it and they put the ads in, do you try and get drivers there that can throw out the first pitch or hit the first, you drop the first puck or some of that stuff?
Yeah, so that is something we work on. So I'll give you two ones that we're doing this year that'll be really fun. So we are going to take a driver to a Chicago Blackhawks game to hang out with Jim and play shoot the puck. Watching an IndyCar driver prep to shoot a hockey puck in front of thousands of fans is really funny because they take any job seriously. Man, I'm not much help. But it is fun, and we'll also be doing our first pitch at Wrigley, for example, during an NBC Chicago telecast of that game. But yeah, I would look out for IndyCar drivers at certain NBC events, both in local markets and as they relate to national telecasts, for sure.
Well, I mean, if you're going to have Chicago, you got to have a White Sox throw out a first pitch at the White Sox.
I'm down for both.
Pal. White Sox.
Oh, God. Gotcha.
I'm a White Sox.
Yeah.
Oh, listen to him back there. He's been into the potato soup. He's getting a little carried away. It's amazing to me, having watched, both of you since you've come in, what you've grown into do, what you do, how you do it, the way you do it. There was a time when I used to hear a lot of media going, God, you don't, I can't find out this, but I haven't heard that in the last 5 or 6, 7 years, which is, except for me complaining, and I just complain anyway just to hear myself.
Yeah, but it's kind of a thing we do. I don't want to ruin that.
Oh, yeah. And I will also say that, Alex, you are very easy to approach with a question, with a problem, as both of you are, actually. So I enjoy it. I enjoy being around. You guys don't go to any of the other events, do you, or do you?
I typically don't travel. No, Alex does some, but...
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so I'll go to every year a couple races before the 500. One, because it's a key time to get together with all the PR reps, both the ones that are based in Indianapolis and the ones that are based elsewhere, and kind of prepare for the countdown to May and get everybody ready for all the activities we're going to do here throughout the month. So still working on my schedule this year, but definitely excited to check out some of the IndyCar races for the start of the season.
Have you got the changing of the diapers down pretty well? Changing of diapers. Nothing. Never mind. It's for the new newbies that are coming into the media that got all kinds of silly questions.
Yeah, I was like, there's no baby that I know of.
I'm talking about the young ones that are coming in, like Howdy Bell. He needs he needs a little.
I was looking at her like, what I miss. So.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I thought you'd catch that.
We have fun out here, man.
The new ones that come in and join that aren't familiar with what goes on and the procedures and who does what and so
yeah,
forth.
I think what your question actually makes me think of is when I was new and I needed a lot of help and counseling.
You did.
How key it is to have people like Susie around, and I try to be good at that, but she's sort of the best at that in a lot of ways, because experience does count and matter, and it helps. Susie, for me, could always help me think through, this is a good new idea, but you got to send it in this direction as opposed to this one to get it done the right way. But yeah, I think I will say on the series side, I'm super excited to see some of the new drivers, Colton Herta and Mr. Erickson and a few others, hit the track in St. Petersburg. I think there's a lot of momentum around the series this year, and that's exciting. I can't remember, except for the 100th running, I can't remember a January and February where I was so busy, and it was because we had good news to share. We had an NBC TV schedule to roll out where a significant increase in network broadcast was taking place. We had NTT series sponsorship to announce. We had Gainbridge, so it's been, and on top of that, we had 2,000 people the other night celebrate 100 days of the 500. So it's been busy, but really good.
I think one guy that really helps everybody to me is Doug Bowles.
Oh yeah.
Because he gets out and talks to people, and he makes calls on the way home, and he'll call fans or get a number.
It's unbelievable his commitment to sort of what I would call in my old political world constituent services. So Doug cares about every single person's experience at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Oh, yeah.
He's tireless about calling customers, one, thanking them for coming back, and then two, seeing if there's anything he can do to make their experience better. And I think Doug certainly is he remembers what it was like to be a little kid who just looked up to this world so much, and he still has that wonder in the way that he approaches racing. And the other thing I think is really awesome about Doug, going back to Wilbur Shaw and some of the people who were Carl Fisher, such a key part of the Speedway's early history. Doug understands the unique blend of promotion and sort of gleeful promotion that they brought to racing and to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he kind of brings some of that energy back. I mean, the guy skydived into the Indy 500. That's pretty spectacular, right?
In my opinion, foolish, but spectacular. I don't know that I'd jump out of a plane. When I had Nelson Stewart here, was it last week, I think? Yeah. And he said that he and Tony went and skydived. And when the guy said, "Who's first?" Nelson said, "Him." He said, because I knew if I went first, he wouldn't have gone.
Have you seen the video of me passing out in the air race plane?
No.
I'll have to send that to you. I took a little nap.
Really? Really?
Yeah, really.
Well, that's better than I would have done. Probably would have said, no, it's okay. I appreciate both of you taking the time to come here. I know you've got lots of other things to do and you're always busy, but I appreciate you taking the time to come here. I enjoy talking to both of you, and I as a member so-called of the media, appreciate everything you do, the information you pass on. When I have a dumb question, you don't laugh at me, not real loud anyway, with some of the things I ask. But thanks for doing what you do and making it a really great month of May and an entire season, actually, because you guys don't stop this when they leave the 500. It keeps going. And I got to also take my hat off to Stephen Stark and what he's doing, and Mark Miles, what he's doing now, putting Jay Fry in charge of the whole kit and caboodle. I think was absolutely fabulous. Yeah, coming from the series he came from and was an owner, he had complaints and nobody listened. Now he listens. He's been there, so he listens to what's being said. I think the whole thing is phenomenal. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Susie Elliott, the media relations manager, and Alex Damron, in charge of the whole damn show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here.
We're going to bring you that milk bottle, man.
Yeah. As I said, next week, my two guests are Matt Mindrum, the Vice President of Marketing for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Allison Meglinton, who is a Senior Vice President. She takes care of the events and she's a phenomenal young lady. You'll enjoy listening to her. She was here once before, but she's afraid to come back. I don't know if she's afraid I'll attack her or she just wants to have security of Matt Mindrum. Well, until next week, Don K. Say thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, listening. See you next week. Good night. Goodbye, Nina. Good night, Nina. Good night, Linda.